Honestly, I kind of I kind of just not play. I kind of want to just like not just ditch the whole thing, go play Engage because Engage is already downloaded on my Switch. So I kind of want to just go do that. So I think the plan is probably going to be I'm just going to finish this bit and then go play Engage or something cuz I kind of want to go play Engage. I have like okay, I have like 2 weeks to play through Engage and then Hogwarts Legacy comes out. Hogwarts Legacy is in like 2 weeks. I gotta actually look at it. Then why don't you just buy it? It was that easy. Where is Legacy on my Steam list? It is yeah. Hogwarts Legacy comes out February 10th, so I've got like 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks. So I got 3 weeks to play as much Engage. I got 3 weeks for Engage, and we'll see how that is. I don't even know how long the game is. I know like almost nothing about the game at this point. So, all right. So let's get started. When your avatar gets killed, your screen doesn't fade to black right away. Instead, your point of view shifts to a third person perspective, treating you to a brief, out of body replay of your avatar's final fate. A split second after we heard the thunderous boom, my perspective shifted and I found myself looking at our three avatars standing there frozen in front of the open gate. Then an incinerating white light filled the world, accompanied by an ear splitting wall of sound. It was what I'd always pictured being fried in a nuclear blast would be like. For a brief moment, I saw our avatar skeletons suspended inside the transparent outlines of our motionless bodies. Then my avatar's hit point counter dropped to 0. The blast wave arrived a second later, disintegrating everything in its path. Our avatars, the floor, the walls of the castle itself, and the thousands of avatars gathered around it. Everything was turned into a fine atomized dust that hung suspended in the air for a second before slowly settling to Earth. The entire surface of the planet had been wiped clean. The area around Castle Anorak, which had been crowded with warring avatars a split second before, was now a desolate and barren wasteland. Everyone and everything had been destroyed. Only the third gate remained, a crystal doorway floating in the air above the crater where the castle had stood a moment before. My initial shock quickly turned to dread as I realized what had happened. The Sixers had detonated the Cataclysm. It was the only explanation. Only that incredibly powerful artifact could have done this. Not only had it killed every avatar in the sector, it even destroyed Castle Anorak, a fortress that, until now, had proven itself to be indestructible. I stared at the open gate floating in the empty air and waited for the inevitable final message to appear in the center of my display. The words I knew every avatar in the sector must be seeing at this very moment. Game over. But when words finally did appear in my display, it was another message entirely. Congratulations, you have an extra life. Then, as I watched in amazement, my avatar reappeared, fading back into existence in the exact same location where I died a few seconds earlier. I was standing in front of the open gate again, but the gate was now floating in midair, suspended several dozen meters above the planet's surface, over the crater that had been created by the destruction of the castle. As my avatar finished materializing, I looked down and realized that the floor I'd been standing on was now gone. So were my jet boots and everything else I'd been carrying. I seemed to hover in midair for a moment, like Wile E. Coyote in the old Roadrunner cartoons. Then I plummeted straight down. I made a desperate grab for the open gate in front of me, but it was well out of reach. I hit the ground hard and lost a third of my hit points from the impact. Then I slowly got to my feet and looked around. I was standing in a vast cube-shaped crater, the space where the foundation and lower basement levels of Castle Anorak had stood. It was completely barren and eerily silent. There was no rubble from the destroyed castle, and no wreckage from the thousands of spaceships and aircraft that had filled the sky a few moments ago. In fact, there was no sign at all of the grand battle that had just been fought there. The Cataclysm had vaporized everything. I looked down at my avatar and saw that I was now wearing a black t-shirt and blue jeans, the default outfit that appeared on every newly created avatar. Then I pulled up my stats and item inventory. My avatar had the same level and ability scores I had had previously, but my inventory was completely empty except for one item, the quarter I'd obtained after playing my perfect game of Pac-Man on an arcade. Once I'd placed the quarter in my inventory, I hadn't been able to remove it, so I'd never been able to have any divination or identification spells cast on it. I'd had no way of ascertaining the quarter's true purpose or powers. During the tumultuous events of the past few months, I'd forgotten I even had the damn thing. But now I knew what the quarter was, a single use artifact that gave my avatar an extra life. Until that moment, I hadn't even known such a thing was possible. In the history of the Oasis, there was no record of any avatar ever acquiring an extra life. I selected the quarter in my inventory and tried again to remove it. This time, I was able to take it out and hold it in the palm of my avatar's hand. Now that the artifact's soul power had been used, it no longer possessed any magical properties. Now, it was just a quarter. I looked straight up at the crystal gate floating 20 meters above me. It was still sitting there, wide open, but I had no idea how I was going to get up there to enter it. I had no jet boots, no ship, and no magic items or memorized spells. Nothing that would allow me to fly or levitate, and there wasn't a single stepladder in sight. There I was, standing a stone's throw away from the third gate, but unable to reach it. Hey Z! I heard a voice say, Can you hear me? It was H, but her voice was no longer altered to sound male. I could hear her perfectly, as if she were talking to me via comlink, but that didn't make any sense, because my avatar no longer had a comlink, and H's avatar was dead. Where are you? I asked the empty air. I'm dead, like everyone else, H said. Everyone but you. Then how can I hear you? I'll patch us all into your audio and video feed, she said, so we can see what you see and hear what you hear. Oh, I said. Is that all right with you, Parzival? I heard Og say. If it isn't, just say so. I thought about it for a moment. No, it's fine with me, I said. Shoto and Artemis are listening in too? Yes, Shoto said. I'm here. Yeah, we're here all right, Artemis said, and I could hear the barely contained rage in her voice. And we're all dead as doornails. The question is, why aren't you dead too, Parzival? Yeah, Z, H said. We are a bit curious about that. What happened? I took out the quarter and held it up in front of my eyes. I was awarded this quarter on arcade a few months ago for playing a perfect game of Pac-Man. It was an artifact, but I never knew its purpose, not until now. Turns out, it gave me an extra life. I heard only silence for a moment, then H began to laugh. You lucky son of a bitch, she said. The news feeds are reporting that every single avatar in the sector is just killed. Over half the population of the Oasis. Was it the Cataclysm? I asked. It had to be, Arthremus said. The Sixers must have bought it when it went up for auction a few years ago, and they've been sitting on it all this time, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate it. But they just carried off all their own troops, too, Shoto said. Why would they do that? I think most of them were already dead, Artemis said. The Sixers had no choice, I said. It was the only way they could stop us. We'd already opened the third gate and were about to step inside when they detonated the thing. I paused, realizing something. How did they know we'd opened it? Unless they were watching us, H said. Sixers probably had remote surveillance cameras hidden all around the gate. So they saw us open it, Artemis said, which means they know how to open it now too. Who cares? Shoto interjected. Sorrento's avatar is dead. So are all of the other Sixers. Wrong, Artemis said. Check the scoreboard. There are still 20 Sixer avatars listed there below Parzival, and their scores indicate that every single one of them has a copy of the Crystal Key. Shit! H and Shoto said in unison. The Sixers knew they might have to detonate the Cataclysm, I said, so they must have taken the precaution of moving some of their avatars outside of Sector 10. They were probably waiting in a gunship just across the sector border where it was safe. You're right, H said, which means there are 20 more Sixers headed your way right now, Z. So you need to get your ass moving, get inside that gate. This is probably going to be your only chance to clear it. I heard her let out a defeated sigh. It's over for us, so we're all rooting for you now, amigo. Good luck. Thanks, H. Oh my god. Koku no inorimasu, Shoto said. Do your best. I will, I said. Then I waited for Artemis to give me her blessing too. Look, Parzival, she said after a long pause. H is right, you know. You're never going to get another shot at this, and neither will any other beater. I heard her voice catch, as if she were choking back tears. Then she took a deep breath and said, Don't screw this up. I won't, I said. No pressure, right? I glanced back up at the open gate, suspended in the air above me, so far out of reach. Then I dropped my gaze and began to scan the area, desperately trying to figure out how I was going to get up there. Something caught my eye, just a few flickering pixels in the distance, near the opposite end of the crater. I ran toward them. Uh, Not to be a backseat driver or anything, H said, but where the hell are you going? All my avatar's items were destroyed by the cataclysm, I said, so now I have no way to fly up there and reach the gate. You gotta be kidding me, H sighed. Man, hits just keep on coming. As I approached the object in the distance, it became gradually clearer. It was the beta capsule, floating just a few centimeters above the ground, spinning clockwise. The cataclysm had destroyed everything in the sector that could be destroyed, but artifacts were indestructible, just like the gate. Wait, I just realized, like, if they could have just detonated like this like universe destroying bomb, why didn't they just like detonate it like when everybody had gathered outside, right? Because if it destroys only the things that are destroyable, then it wouldn't affect that the barrier they had, right? So it would have like actually team wiped. Yeah, like it actually would have team wiped everybody. Like, yeah, like hello? That doesn't make any sense. That's so dumb. Like I guess they wanted to like figure it out from they wanted to figure out how to open the gate, but I feel like it was poorly planned like how they could have done that. Like they could have instead like pretended to have that wizard guy who was like projecting the force field to like just dip out and then like lure everybody in, figure out how the gate was opened and then detonate it, bring the wizard back and then like it's perfectly fine. Yeah, they're supposed to be like oh well, we'll finish this and then we can talk about it. It's the beta capture! Shoto shouted. It must have been thrown over here by the force of the blast. You can use it to become Ultraman and fly up to the gate. I nodded, raised the capsule over my head, then pressed the button on the side to activate it. But nothing happened. Shit, I muttered, realizing why. It won't work. It can only be used once a day. I stowed the beta capsule and started to scan the ground around me. There must be other artifacts scattered around here, I said. I began to run along the perimeter of the castle foundation, still scanning the ground. Were any of you guys carrying artifacts? One that would give me the ability to fly, or levitate, or teleport? No, answered Shoto. I didn't have any artifacts. My sword of the Bahir was an artifact, H said, but it won't help you reach the gate. But my chucks will, Arthur Miss said. Your chucks? I repeated. My shoes, Black Chuck Taylor All Stars. They bestow their wearer with both speed and flight. Great, perfect, I said. Now I just have to find them. I continued to run forward, eyes sweeping the ground. I found H's sword a minute later and added it to my inventory, but it took me another 5 minutes of searching before I found Arthur Miss's magic sneakers near the south end of the crater. I put them on and they adjusted to fit my avatar's feet perfectly. I'll get these back to you, Artie, I said, just as I finished lacing them up. Promise. You better, she said. They were my favorites. I took 3 running steps, leapt into the air, and then I was flying. I swooped up and around, then turned back around toward the gate, aiming straight for it. But at the last moment, I banked to the right, then arced back around. I stopped to hover in front of the open gate. The crystal doorway hung in the air directly ahead, just a few yards away. It reminded me of the floating door in the opening credits of the original Twilight Zone. What are you waiting for? H shouted. The Sixers could show up any minute now. I know, I said, but there's something I need to say to y'all before I go in. Well, Arthur said, spit it out. The clock is ticking, fool. Okay. I just wanted to say that I know how the 3 of you must feel right now. It isn't fair the way this is played out. We should all be entering the gate together. So before I go in, I want you guys to know something. If I reach the egg, I'm going to split the prize money equally among the 4 of us. Stunned silence. Hello? I said after a few seconds. Did you guys hear me? Are you insane? H said. Why would you do that, Z? Because it's the only honorable thing to do, I said. Because I would have gotten this far on my own. Because all 4 of us deserve to see what's inside the gate and find out how the game ends. And because I need your help. Could you repeat that last bit, please? Arthur Miss asked. I need your help, I said. You guys are right. This is my only shot at clearing the third gate, and there won't be any second chances for anyone. The Sixers will be here soon, and they'll enter the gate as soon as they arrive. So I have to clear it before they do on my first attempt. The odds of me pulling that off will increase drastically if the three of you are back me up. So, what do you say? Count me in, Z, H said. I was planning to coach your dumb ass anyway. Count me in too, said Shoto. I got nothing left to lose. Let me get this straight, Artemis said. We help you clear the gate, and in return, you agree to split the prize money with us? Wrong, I said. If I win, I'm going to split the prize money with you guys, regardless whether you help me or not. So helping me is probably in your best interest. I don't suppose we have time to get that in writing, Artemis said. I thought for a moment, then accessed my POV channel's control menu. I initiated a live broadcast so everyone watching my channel, my ratings counter said I currently had more than 200 million viewers, could hear what I was about to say. Greetings, I said. This is Wade Watts, also known as Parzival. I want to let the whole world know that if and when I find Halliday's Easter egg, I hereby vow to split my winnings equally with Artemis, H, and Shoto. Cross my heart and hope to die. Beaters, honors, pinky swear, all that crap. If I'm lying, I should be forever branded a gutless, sixer-filleting punk. As I finished the broadcast, I heard Artemis say, Dude, are you nuts? I was kidding. Oh, I said. All right. I knew that. I cracked my knuckles, then flew forward into the gate, and my avatar vanished into the whirlpool of stars. I found myself standing in a vast, dark, empty space. I couldn't see the walls or ceiling, but there appeared to be a floor because I was standing on something. I waited a few seconds, unsure of what to do. Then a booming electronic voice echoed through the void. It sounded as if it were being generated by a primitive speech synthesizer, like those using Qbert and Gorf. Beat the high score or be destroyed, the voice announced. A shaft of light appeared, shining down from somewhere above. There, in front of me, at the base of this long pillar of light, stood an old coin-operated arcade game. I recognized its distinctive angular cabinet immediately. Tempest. Atari. 1980. I closed my eyes and dropped my head. Crap, I muttered. This is not my best game, gang. Come on, I heard Artemis whisper. You had to know Tempest was going to factor into the third gate somehow. It was so obvious. Oh, really? I said. Why's that? Because of the quote on the last page of the almanac, she replied. I must uneasy make, lest too light winning make the prize light. I know the quote, I said, annoyed. It's from Shakespeare, but I figured it was just Halliday's way of letting us know how difficult he was going to make the hunt. It was, Artemis said, but it was also a clue. That quote was taken from Shakespeare's final play, The Tempest. Shit, I hissed. How the hell did I miss that? I never made that connection either, H confessed. Bravo, Artemis. The game Tempest also appears briefly in the music video for the song Subdivisions by Rush, she added, one of Halliday's favorites. Pretty hard to miss. Whoa, Shoto said. She good. Okay, I shout out. It should have been obvious. No need to rub it in. I take it you haven't had much practice at this game, Z? H said. A little, a long time ago, I said, but not nearly enough. Look at the high score. I pointed at the monitor. The high score was 728,329,000. The initials next to it were JDH, James Donovan Halliday, and as I feared, the credit counter at the bottom of the screen had a numeral 1 in front of it. Yikes, H said. Only one credit, just like Black Tiger. I remembered the now useless extra life quarter in my inventory and took it out. When I dropped it into the coin slot, it fell right through into the coin return. I reached down to remove it and saw a sticker on the coin mechanism. Tokens only. So much for that idea, I said. And I don't see a token machine anywhere around here. Looks like you only get one game, H said. All or nothing. Guys, I haven't played Tempest in years, I said. I'm screwed. There's no way I'm going to beat Halliday's high score on my first attempt. You don't have to, Artemis said. Look at the copyright year. I glanced at the bottom of the screen. Copyright MCMLXXX Atari. 1918? H said. How does that help him? Yeah, I said. How does that help me? That means this was the very first version of Tempest, Arthur said. The version that shipped with a bug in the game code. When Tempest first hit the arcades, kids discovered that if you died with a certain score, the machine would give you a bunch of free credits. Oh, I said, somewhat ashamed. I, I didn't know that. You would, Arthur said, if you'd researched the game as much as I did. Damn, girl, H said, you got some serious knowledge. Thanks, she said. It helps to be an obsessive compulsive geek with no life. Everyone laughed at that except me. I was much too nervous. Okay, Artie, I said. What do I need to get those free games? I'm looking it up in my quest journal right now, she said. I could hear paper rustling. It sounded like she was flipping through the pages of an actual book. You just happen to have a hard copy of her journal with you? I asked. I always keep my journal longhand in spiral notebooks, she said. Good thing, too, since my Oasis count and everything in it was just erased. More flipping of pages. Here it is. First, you need to rack up over 180,000 points. Once you've done that, make sure you end the game with a score where the last two digits are 0, 6, 11, or 12. If you do that, you'll get 40 free credits. You're absolutely positive. Positively, absolutely. Okay, I said. Here goes. I began to run through my pregame ritual, stretching, cracking my knuckles, rolling my head and neck left and right. Christ, will you get on with it? H said. Spence is killing me here. Quiet, Shoto said. Get the man some room to breathe, will you? Everyone remained silent while I finished psyching myself up. Here goes nothing, I said. Then I hit the flashing player 1 button. Tempest used old school vector graphics, so the game's images were created from glowing neon lines drawn across a pitch black screen. You're giving a top-down view of a three-dimensional tunnel, and you use a spinning rotary dial to control a shooter that travels around the rim of the tunnel. The objective of the game is to shoot the enemies crawling up and out of the tunnel toward you while dodging their fire and avoiding other obstacles. As you proceed from one level to the next, the tunnels take on gradually more complex geometric shapes, and the number of enemies and obstacles crawling up toward you multiplies drastically. Halliday had put this Tempest machine on tournament settings, so I couldn't start the game any higher than level 9. It took me about 15 minutes to get my score above 180,000, and I lost 2 lives in the process. I was even rustier than I thought. When my score hit 189,412, I intentionally impaled my shooter on a spike, using up my last remaining life. The game prompted me to enter my initials, and I nervously tapped them in. W-O-W. When I finished, the game's credit counter jumped from 0 up to 40. The sound of my friends' wild cheers filled my ears, nearly giving me a heart attack. Arthur, miss, you're a genius, I said once the noise died down. I know. I tapped the player 1 button again and began a second game, now focused on beating Halliday's high score. I still felt anxious, but considerably less so. If I didn't manage to get the high score this time, I had 39 more chances. During a break between waves, Arthur spoke up. So your initials are W-O-W? What does the O stand for? Obtuse, I said. She laughed. No, seriously. Owen. Owen, she repeated. Wade Owen Watts. That's nice. Then she fell silent as the next wave began. I finished my second game a few minutes later with a score of 219,585. Not horrible, but a far cry from my goal. Not bad, H said. Yeah, but not that good. Yeah, but not that good either, Shoto observed. Then he seemed to remember that I could hear him. I mean, much better, Parzivar. You're doing great. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Shoto. Hey, check this out, Arthur said, reading from her journal. The creator of Tempest, David Theurer, originally got the idea for the game from a nightmare he had about monsters crawling up out of a hole in the ground and chasing after her. She laughed her little musical laugh, which I hadn't heard in so long. Isn't that cool, Z? She said. That is cool, I replied. Somehow, just hearing her voice set me at ease. I think she knew this, and that was why she kept talking to me. I felt re-energized. I hit the player 1 button again and began my third game. Hold on. They all watched me play in complete silence. Nearly an hour later, I lost my last man. My final score was 473,977. As soon as the game ended, H's voice cut in. Bad news, amigo, she said. What? We were right. When the cataclysm went off, the Sixers had a group of avatars in reserve waiting just outside the sector. Right after the detonation, they re-entered the sector and headed straight for Cliffonia. They... Her voice trailed off. They what? They just entered the gate with about 5 minutes ago. Arthur answered. The gate closed after you went in, but when the Sixers arrived, they used 3 of their own keys to reopen it. You mean the Sixers are already inside the gate right now? 18 of them, H said. When they stepped through the gate, each one entered a standalone simulation, separate instance of the gate. All 18 of them are playing Tempest right now, just like you, trying to beat Halliday's high score. And all of them use the exploit to get 40 free credits. Most of them aren't doing that well, but one of them has some serious skill. We think Sereno is probably operating that avatar. He just used the second game. Wait a second, I interrupted. How can you possibly know all this? Because we can see them, Shoto said. Everyone logged into the erasers right now can see them. They can see you too. What the hell are you talking about? The moment someone enters the third gate, a live vid feed of their avatar appears at the top of the scoreboard, Arthur said. Apparently, Halliday wanted clearing the final gate to be a spectator sport. Wait, I said. You mean to tell me that the entire world has been watching me play Tempest for the past hour? Correct, Arthur said. And they're watching you stand there and jabber back us right now, too. So watch what you say. Why did you guys tell me? I shouted. We didn't want to make you nervous, H said, or distract you. Oh, great. Perfect. Thank you, I was shouting somewhat hysterically. Calm down, Parzival, Arthur said. Get your head back in the game. This is a race now. There are 18 Sixer avatars right behind you, so you need to make this next game count, understand? Yeah, I said, exhaling slowly. I understand. I took another deep breath and pressed the player 1 button once again. As usual, competition brought out the best in me. This time, I managed to slip into the zone. Spinner, zapper, super zapper, clear a level, avoid the spikes. My hands began to work the controls without my even having to think about it. I forgot what was at stake, and I forgot about that millions of people were watching me. I lost myself in the game. I'd been playing just over an hour and had just cleared level 81 when I heard another wild burst of cheering in my ears. You did it, man! I heard Shoto shout. My eyes darted up to the top of the screen. My score was 802,488. I kept playing. Oh, did I accidentally? Okay. I wasn't really thinking about it when I said it. Might be. I kept playing instinctively, wanting to get the highest score possible, but then I heard Arthur loudly clear her throat. I realized there was no need to go any further. In fact, I was now wasting valuable seconds, burning away whatever lead I still had on the Sixers. I quickly depleted my 2 extra lives and game over flashed on the screen. I entered my initials again, and they appeared at the top of the list, just above Halliday's high score. Then the monitor went blank, and a message appeared in the center of the screen. Well done, Parzival. Prepare for stage 2. Then the game cabinet vanished, and my avatar vanished with it. I found myself galloping across a fog-covered hillside. I assumed I was riding a horse because I was bobbing up and down, and I heard the sound of hoofbeats. Directly ahead, a familiar-looking castle had just appeared out of the fog. But when I looked down at my avatar's body, I saw I wasn't riding a horse at all. I was walking on the ground. My avatar was now dressed in a suit of chainmail armor, and my hands were held out in front of my body as though I were clutching a set of reins. But I wasn't holding anything. My hands were completely empty. I stopped moving forward, and the sound of hoofbeats also ceased. But not until a few seconds later. I turned around and saw the source of the sound. It wasn't a horse. It was a man banging 2 coconut halves together. Then I knew where it was. Inside the first scene of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, another of Halliday's favorite films and perhaps the most beloved geek film of all. It appeared to be another flick sync, like the War Game simulation inside Gate 1. I was playing King Arthur, I realized. I wore the same costume Graham Chapman had worn in the film, and the man with the coconuts was my trusty manservant Patsy, as played by Terry Gilliam. Patsy bowed and groveled a bit when I turned to face him, but said nothing. It's Python's Holy Grail! I heard Shoto whisper excitedly. Duh, I said, forgetting myself for a second. I know that, Shoto. A warning flashed on my display. Incorrect dialogue. A score of minus 100 points appeared in the corner of my display. Smooth moves, X-Lax. I heard Arthur say. Hey, that's my joke. Just let us know if you need any help, Z, H said. Wave your hands or something, and we'll feed you the next line. I nodded and gave a thumbs up, but I didn't think I was going to need that much help. Over the past years, I'd watched Holy Grail exactly 157 times. I knew every word by heart. I glanced back up at the castle ahead of me, already aware what was waiting for me there. I began to gallop again, holding my invisible reins as I pretended to ride forward. Once again, Patsy began to bang his coconut halves together, galloping along behind me. When we reached the entrance of the castle, I pulled back on my reins and brought my steed to a halt. Whoa there, I shouted. My score increased by 100 points, bringing it back up to 0. On cue, 2 soldiers appeared up above, leaning over the castle wall. Who goes there? One of them shouted down at us. It is I, Arthur, son of Uther Pendragon, from the castle of Camelot, I recited. King of the Britons, defeater of the Saxons, sovereign of all England. My score jumped up another 500 points, and a message informed me that I received a bonus for my accent and inflection. I felt myself relax, and I realized I was already having fun. Pull the other one, the soldier replied. I am, I continued, and this is my trusty servant Patsy. We have ridden the length and breadth of the land in search of knights who will join me in my court at Camelot. I must speak with your lord and master. Another 500 points. In my ear, I could hear my friends giggling and applauding. What? The other soldier replied. Ridden on a horse? Yes, I said, 100 points. You're using coconuts. What? I said, 100 points. You've got 2 empty halves of coconut and you're banging them together. So, we have ridden since the snows of winter covered this land, through the kingdom of Mercia, through... Another 500 points. Where'd you get the coconuts? And so it went. The character I was playing changed from one scene to the next, switching to whomever had the most dialogue. Incredibly, I only flubbed 6 or 7 lines. Each time I got stumped, all I had to do was shrug and hold out my hands, palms up, my signal that I needed some help. And H, Arthurimus, and Shota would all gleefully feed me the correct lines. The rest of the time they remained silent, except for the occasional giggle fit or burst of laughter. The only really difficult part was not laughing myself, especially when Arthurimus started doing note-perfect recitations of all of Carol Cleveland's lines in the Cathal Anthrax scene. I cracked up a few times and got hit with score penalties for it. Otherwise, it was smooth sailing. Reenacting the film wasn't just easy. It was a total blast. About halfway through the movie, right after my confrontation with the Knights of Ni, I opened up a text window on my display and typed status of the Sixers. 15 of them are still playing Tempest, I heard H reply, but 3 of them beat Halliday's score and are now inside the Grail simulation. A brief pause. And the leader, Sorrento, we think, is running just 9 minutes behind you. And so far, he hasn't missed a single line of dialogue, Shota added. I nearly cursed aloud, then caught myself and typed, Shit! Exactly, Arthurimus said. I took a deep breath. I returned my attention to the next scene, the tale of Sir Launcelot. H continued to give me updates on the Sixers whenever I asked for them. When I reached the film's final scene, the assault on the French castle, I grew anxious again, wondering what would happen next. The first gate had required me to reenact a movie, War Games, and the second gate had contained a video game challenge, Black Tiger. So far, the third gate had contained both. I knew there must be a third stage, but I had no idea what it might be. I got my answer a few minutes later. As soon as I completed Holy Grail's final scene, my display went black, while the silly organ music that ends the film played for a few minutes. When the music stopped, the following appeared on my display. Congratulations! You have reached the end. Ready Player One. And then the text faded away. I found myself standing in a huge oak-paneled room as large as a warehouse, with a high-vaulted ceiling and a polished hardwood floor. The room had no windows and only one exit, large double doors set into one of the 4 bare walls. An older, high-end Oasis immersion rig stood in the absolute center of the expansive room. Over 100 glass tables surrounded the rig, arranged in a large oval around it. On each table, there was a different classic home computer or video game system. accompanied by tiered racks that appeared to hold a complete collection of its peripherals, controllers, software, and games. All of it looked perfectly arranged perfectly like a museum exhibit. Looking around the circle from one system to the next, I saw that the computers seemed to be arranged roughly by year of origin. A PDP-1, an Altair 8800, an IMSAI 8080, an Apple One right next to an Apple II, an Atari 2600, a Commodore PET, an Intellivision, several different TRS-80 models, an Atari 400 and 800, a ColecoVision, a TI-99-4, a Sinclair ZX80, a Commodore 64, various Nintendo and Sega game systems, the entire lineage of Macs and PCs, PlayStations, and Xboxes. Finally completing the circle was an Oasis console connected to the immersion rig in the center of the room. I realized I was standing in a recreation of James Halliday's office, the room in his mansion where he'd spent most of his last 15 years of life. The place where he coded his last and greatest game, the one I was now playing. I'd never seen any photos of this room, but its layout and contents had been described in great detail by the movers hired to clear the place out after Halliday's death. I looked down at my avatar and saw that I no longer appeared as one of the Monty Python Knights. I was Parzival once again. First, I did the obvious and tried the exit. The doors wouldn't budge. I turned back and took another long look around the room, surveying the long line of monuments to the history of computing and video games. That was when I realized that the oval-shaped ring in which they had been arranged actually formed the outline of an egg. In my head, I recited the words of Halliday's first riddle, the one in Anorak's invitation. 3 hidden keys open 3 secret gates, wherein the errant will be tested for worthy traits, and those with skill to survive these straits will reach the end where the prize awaits. I'd reached the end. This was it. Halliday's Easter egg must be hidden somewhere in this room. Do you guys see this? I whispered. There was no reply. Hello? H? Arthurimus? Shoto? Are you guys still there? Still, no reply. Either Og had cut their voice links to me, or Halliday had coded this final stage of the gate so that no outside communication was possible. I was pretty sure it was the latter. I stood there in silence for a minute, unsure of what to do. Then I followed my first instinct and walked over to the Atari 2600. It was hooked up to a 1977 Zenith color TV. I turned on the TV, but nothing happened. Then I switched on the Atari. Still nothing. There was no power, even though both the TV and the Atari were plugged into electrical outlets into the floor. I tried the Apple II on the table beside it. It wouldn't switch on either. After a few minutes of experimentation, I discovered that the only computer that would power on was one of the oldest, the IMSAI 8080, the same model of computer Matthew Broderick owned in war games. When I booted it up, the screen was completely blank, save for one word: login. I typed in Anorak and hit enter. Identification not recognized, connection terminated. Then the computer shut itself off and I had to power it back on to get the login prompt again. I tried Halliday. No dice. In war games, the backdoor password that had granted access to the Whopper supercomputer was Joshua. Professor Walken, the creator of the Whopper, had used the name of his son for the password, the person he loved most in the world. I typed in Og. It didn't work. Ogden didn't work either. I typed in Kira and hit enter. Identification not recognized. Connection terminated. I tried each of his parents' first names. I tried Zaphod, the name of his pet fish. Then Tiberius, the name of a ferret he once owned. None of them worked. I checked the time. I had been in this room for over 10 minutes now, which meant that Sorrento had caught up with me. So he would now be inside his own separate copy of this room, probably with a team of Halliday scholars whispering suggestions in his ear thanks to his hacked immersion rig. They were probably already working from a prioritized list of possibilities, entering them as fast as Sorrento could type. I was out of time. I clenched my teeth in frustration. I had no idea what to try next. Then I remembered a line from Ogden Morrow's biography. The opposite sex made Jim extremely nervous, and Kira was the only girl that I ever saw him speak to in a relaxed manner. But even then, it was only in character as Anorak, during the course of our gaming sessions, and he would only address her as Lucosia, the name of her D&D character. I rebooted the computer again. When the login prompt reappeared, I typed in Lucosia. Then I hit the enter key. Every system in the room powered itself on. The sounds of whirring disk drives, self-test beeps, and other boot-up sounds echoed off the vaulted ceiling. I ran back over to the Atari 2600 and searched the giant rack of alphabetized game cartridges beside it, until I found the one I was looking for, Adventure. I shoved it into the Atari and turned the system on, then hit the reset switch to start the game. It took me only a few minutes to reach the secret room. I grabbed a sword and used it to slay all 3 of the dragons. Then I found the black key and opened the gates of the Black Castle and ventured into the labyrinth. The gray dot was hidden right where it was supposed to be. I picked it up and carried it back across the tiny 8-bit kingdom, then used it to pass through the magic barrier and enter the secret room. But unlike the original Atari game, this secret room didn't contain the name of Warren Robinett, Adventure's original programmer. Instead, at the very center of the screen, there was a large white oval with pixelated edges, an egg. The egg. I stared at the TV screen in stunned silence for a moment. Then I pulled the Atari joystick to the right, moving my tiny square avatar across the flickering screen. The TV's mono speaker emitted a brief electronic bip as I dropped the gray dot and picked up the egg. As I did, there was a brilliant flash of light, and then I saw my avatar was no longer holding a joystick. Now, cupped in both of my hands was a large silver egg. I could see my avatar's warped reflection on its curved surface. When I finally managed to stop staring at it, I looked up and saw that the double doors on the other side of the room had been replaced with the gate exit, a crystal-edged portal leading back into the foyer of Castle Anorak. The castle appeared to have been completely restored, even though the Oasis server still wouldn't reset for several more hours. I took one last look at Halliday's office. Then, still clutching the egg in my hands, I walked across the room and stepped through the exit. As soon as I was through it, I turned around just in time to see the crystal gate transform into a large wooden door set into the castle wall. I opened the wooden door. Beyond it, there was a spiral staircase that led up to the top of Castle Anorak's tallest tower. There, I found Anorak's study. Towering shelves lined the room, filled with ancient scrolls and dusty spellbooks. I walked over to the window and looked out on the stunning view of the surrounding landscape. It was no longer barren. The effects of the cataclysm had been undone, and all of Chthoniya appeared to have been restored along with the castle. I looked around the room. Directly beneath the familiar black dragon painting, there was an ornate crystal pedestal on which rested a gold chalice encrusted with tiny jewels. Its diameter matched that of the silver egg I held in my hands. I placed the egg in the chalice, and it fit perfectly. In the distance, I heard a fanfare of trumpets, and the egg began to glow. "You win," I heard a voice say. I turned and saw that Anorak was standing right behind me. His obsidian black robes seemed to pull most of the sunlight out of the room. "Congratulations," he said, stretching out his long-fingered hand. I hesitated, wondering if this was another trick, or perhaps one final test. "The game is over," Anorak said, as if he'd read my mind. "It's time for you to receive your prize." I looked down at his outstretched hand. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I took it. Cascading bolts of blue lightning erupted in the space between us, and their spiderweb tines enveloped us both, as if a surge of power were passing from his avatar into mine. When the lightning subsided, I saw that Anorak was no longer dressed in his black wizard's robes. In fact, he no longer looked like Anorak at all. He was shorter, thinner, and somewhat less handsome. Now he looked like James Halliday, pale, middle-aged. He was dressed in worn jeans and a faded Space Invaders t-shirt. I looked down at my own avatar and discovered that I was now wearing Anorak's robes. Then I realized that the icons and readouts around the edge of my display had also changed. My stats were all completely maxed out, and I now had a list of spells, inherent powers, and magic items that seemed to scroll on forever. My avatar's level and hit point counters both had infinity symbols in front of them, and my credit readout now displayed a number 12 digits long. I was a multi-billionaire. "I'm entrusting the care of the Oasis to you now, Parzival," Halliday said. "Your avatar is immortal and all-powerful. Whatever you want, all you have to do is wish for it. Pretty sweet, eh?" He leaned toward me and lowered his voice. "Do me a favor. Try and use your powers only for good, okay?" "Okay," I said, in a voice that was barely a whisper. Halliday smiled. then gestured around us. This is your castle now. I've coded its room so that only your avatar can enter. I did this to ensure that you alone have access to this. He walked over to a bookshelf against the wall and pulled on the spine of one of the volumes it held. I heard a click. Then the bookshelf slid aside, revealing a square metal plate set into the wall. In the center of the plate, there was a comically large red button embossed with a single word: off. I call this the big red button, Halliday said. If you press it, it will shut off the entire Oasis and launch a worm that will delete everything stored on the GSS servers, including all the Oasis source code. It will shut down the Oasis forever. He smirked. So don't press it unless you're absolutely positive it's the right thing to do, okay? He gave me an odd smile. I trust your judgment. Halliday slid the bookshelf back into place, concealing the button once again. Then he startled me by putting his arm around my shoulders. Listen, he said, adopting a confidential tone. I need to tell you one last thing before I go. Something I didn't figure out for myself until it was already too late. He led me to the window and motioned out at the landscape stretching out beyond it. I created the Oasis because I never felt at home in the real world. I didn't know how to connect with the people there. I was afraid for all of my life, right up until I knew it was ending. That was when I realized, as terrifying and painful as reality can be, it's also the only place where you can find true happiness. Because reality is real. Do you understand? Yes, I said. I think I do. Good, he said, giving me a wink. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't hide in here forever. He smiled and took a few steps away from me. All right, I think that covers everything. It's time for me to blow this pop stand. Then Halliday began to disappear. He smiled and waved goodbye as his avatar slowly faded out of existence. Good luck, Parzival, he said, and thanks. Thanks for playing my game. Then he was completely gone. Are you guys there? I said to the empty room a few minutes later. Yes, H said excitedly. Can you hear us? Yeah, I can now. What happened? The system cut off our voice links to you as soon as you entered Halliday's office, so we couldn't talk to you. Ruckery, you didn't need our help anyway, Shoto said. Good job, man. Congratulations, Lade, I heard Artemis say, and I could tell she meant it too. Thanks, I said, but I couldn't have done it without you guys. You're right, Artemis said. Remember to mention that when you talk to the media. Og says there are a few hundred reporters on their way here right now. I glanced over at the bookshelf that concealed the big red button. Did you guys see everything Halliday said to me before he vanished? I asked. No, Artemis said. We saw everything up until he told you to try and use your powers only for good. Then your vid feed cut out. What happened after that? Nothing much, I said. I'll tell you about it later. Dude, H said, you gotta check the scoreboard. I opened a window and pulled up the scoreboard. The list of high scores was gone. Now the only thing displayed on Halliday's website was an image of my avatar, dressed in Anorak's robes, holding the silver egg, along with the words, Parzival wins. What happened to the Sixers? I asked. The ones who are still inside the gate. We're not sure, H said. Their vid feeds vanished when the scoreboard changed. Maybe their avatars were cured, Shoto said. Or maybe they were just ejected from the gate, I said. I pulled up my map of Chthonian and saw that I could now teleport anywhere in the Oasis, simply by selecting my desired destination in the atlas. I zoomed in on Castle Anorak and tapped the spot just outside the front entrance, and in a blink, my avatar was standing there. I was right. When I'd cleared the third gate, the 18 Sixer avatars who were still inside had been ejected from the gate and deposited in front of the castle. They were all standing there with confused looks on their faces when I appeared in front of them, resplendent in my new threads. They all stared at me in silence for a few seconds, then pulled out guns and swords, preparing to attack. They all looked identical, so I couldn't tell which one was being controlled by Sorrento, but at this point, I didn't really care. Using my avatar's new super user interface, I made a sweeping gesture with my hand, selecting all of those Sixer avatars on my display. Their outlines began to glow red. Then I tapped the skull and crossbones icon that now appeared on my avatar's toolbox. All 18 Sixer avatars instantly dropped dead. Their bodies slowly faded out of existence, each leaving behind a tiny pile of weapons and loot. Holy shit! I heard Shoto say over the comm link. How did you do that? You heard Halliday, H said. His avatar is mortal and all-powerful. Yeah, said he wasn't kidding either. Halliday said you could wish for whatever you wanted, H said. What are you going to wish for first? I thought about that for a second, then I tapped a new command icon that now appeared at the edge of my display. I wish for H, Arthremis, and Shoto to be resurrected. A dialogue window popped up, asking me to confirm the spelling of each of their avatar names. Once I did, the system asked if, in addition to resurrecting their avatars, I wanted to restore all their lost items too. I tapped the yes icon. Then a message appeared in the center of my display. Resurrection complete, avatars restored. Guys, I said, you might want to try logging back into your accounts now. We're already on our way, H shouted. A few seconds later, Shoto logged back into his account and his avatar materialized a short distance in front of me, in the exact spot where he'd been killed a few hours earlier. He ran over to me, grinning from ear to ear. Arigato, Parzivar-san, he said, bowing low. I returned the bow, then threw my arms around him. Welcome back, I said. A moment later, H emerged from the castle entrance and ran over to us. Good as new, he said, grinning down at his restored avatar. Thanks, Z. De nada. I glanced back through the castle's open entrance. Where's Arthremis? She should have reappeared right next to you. She didn't log back in, H said. She said she wanted to go outside and get some fresh air. You saw her? What? I searched for the right words. How did she look? They both just smiled at me, then H rested a hand on my shoulder. She said she'd be outside waiting for you whenever you're ready to meet her. I nodded. I was about to tap my logout icon when H held up his hand. Wait a second, before you log out, you gotta see something, he said, opening a window in front of me. This is airing on all the news feeds right now. The feds just took Sorrento in for questioning. They stormed into IOI headquarters and yanked him right out of his haptic chair. A video clip began to play. Handheld camera footage showed a team of federal agents leading Sorrento across the lobby of the IOI corporate headquarters. He was still wearing his haptic suit and was shadowed by a gray-haired man in a suit who I assumed was his attorney. Sorrento looked annoyed more than anything, as if this were all a mild inconvenience. The caption along the bottom of the window read, Top IOI Executive Sorrento accused of murder. The news feeds have been playing clips from the sim cap of your chat link with Sorrento all day, H said, pausing the clip, especially the part where he threatens to kill you and then blows up your aunt's trailer. H hit play and the news clip continued. The federal agents continued to usher Sorrento through the lobby, which was packed with reporters, all pushing against one another and shouting questions. The reporter shooting the video we were watching lunged forward and jammed the camera in Sorrento's face. Did you give the order to kill Wade Watts personally? The reporter shouted. How does it feel to know you just lost the contest? Sorrento smiled but didn't reply. Then his attorney stepped in front of the camera and addressed the reporters. The charges leveled against my client are preposterous, he said. The sim cap being circulated is clearly a doctored fake. We have no other comment at this time. Sorrento nodded. He continued to smile as the feds led him out of the building. The bastard will probably get off scot-free, I said. IOI can afford to hire the best lawyers in the world. Yes, H said. Then he flashed his Cheshire grin. But now, so can we. When I stepped out of the immersion bay, Og was standing there waiting for me. Well done, Wade, he said. Wait, shit, that's the wrong voice. Well done, Wade, he said, pulling me into a crushing bear hug. Well done. Thanks, Og. I was still dazed and felt unsteady on my feet. Several chief executives from GSS arrived while you were logged in, Og said, along with all of Jim's lawyers. They're all waiting upstairs. As you can imagine, they're anxious to speak with you. Do I have to talk to them right now? No, of course not, he laughed. They all work for you now, remember? Make the bastards wait as long as you like. He leaned forward. My lawyer's up there too. He's a good guy, a real pit bull. He'll make sure that no one messes with you, okay? Thanks, Og, I said. I really owe you. Nonsense, he said. I should be thanking you. I haven't had this much fun in decades. You did good, kid. I glanced around uncertainly. H and Shoto were still in their immersion bays, holding an impromptu online press conference, but Arthremis's bay was empty. I turned back to Og. Do you know which way Arthremis went? Og grinned at me, then pointed. Up those stairs and out the first door you see, he said. She says she'd wait for you at the center of my hedge maze. He smiled. It's an easy maze. It shouldn't take you very long to find her. I stepped outside and squinted as my eyes adjusted to the light. The air was warm and the sun was already high overhead. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was a beautiful day. The hedge maze covered several acres. Hold on. So the actual operation started at 12 OST, but how does that translate to real time? Then it should be no. He's in Oregon, and they said Oasis Standard was Eastern Standard, right? So it should have been 9 a.m. when they went in. So okay, the time does make sense. Okay, it was a beautiful day. The hedge maze covered several acres of land behind the mansion. The entrance was designed to look like the facade of a castle, and you entered the maze through its open. Wait, there's no thing for the sea, so that's facade. To look like the facade of a castle, and you entered the maze through its open gates. The dense hedge walls that comprised the maze were 10 feet tall, making it impossible to peek over them, even if you stood on top of one of the benches placed throughout the labyrinth. I entered the maze and wandered around in circles for a few minutes, confused. Eventually, I realized that the maze's layout was identical to the labyrinth in Adventure. After that, it took me only a few more minutes to find my way to the large open area at the maze's center. A large fountain stood there with a detailed stone sculpture of Adventure's three duck-shaped dragons. Each dragon was spitting out a stream of water instead of breathing fire. And then I saw her. She was sitting on a stone bench, staring into the fountain. She had her back to me, and her head was tilted down. Her long black hair spilled down over her right shoulder. I could see that she was kneading her hands in her lap. I was afraid to move any closer. Finally, I worked up the courage to speak. "Hello, Uwu," I said. She lifted her head at the sound of my voice, but didn't turn around. "Hello, Owo," I heard her say, and it was her voice, Artemis's voice, the voice I'd spent so many hours. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, never mind. The voice I'd spent so many hours listening to, and that gave me the courage to step forward. I walked around the fountain and stopped once I was standing directly in front of her. As she heard me approach, she turned her head away, averting her eyes and keeping me out of her field of vision. But I could see her. She looked just as she had in the photo I'd seen. She had the same Rubenesque body, the same pale freckled skin, the same hazel eyes and raven hair, the same beautiful round face with the same reddish birthmark. But unlike in that photo, she wasn't trying to hide the birthmark with a sweep of her hair. She had her hair brushed back so I could see it. I waited in silence, but she still wouldn't look up at me. "You look just like I always pictured you, Uwu," I said. "Beautiful, oh whoa." "Really, Uwu?" she said softly. Slowly, she turned to face me, taking in my appearance a little at a time, starting with my feet and then gradually working her way up to my face. When our eyes finally met, she smiled at me nervously. "Well, what do you know, Owo? You look like you look just like I always thought you would, Owo," she said. "But ugly, Owo." We both laughed, and most of the tension in the air dissipated. Then we stared into each other's eyes for what seemed like a long time. It was, I realized, also the very first time. "We haven't been formally introduced, Uwu," she said. "I'm Samantha, Uwu." "Hello, Samantha, Owo. I'm Wade, Owo." "It's finally nice to meet you in person, Wade, Uwu." She patted the bench beside her, and I sat down. After a long silence, she said, "So what happens now, Owo?" I smiled. "We're going to use all the moolah we just won to feed everyone on the planet, Owo. We're going to make the world a better place, right, Uwu?" She grinned. "Don't you want to build a huge interstellar spaceship, load it full of video games, junk food, and comfy couches, and get the hell out of here, Owo?" "I'm up for that too, Uwu," I said. "If it means I get to spend the rest of..." Well, hold on. Yeah, Okay, my bad. Everybody here? Hope everybody's here. Let me. I'll give everybody like a minute or two to catch back up because we're at the final, the final hour. I'll assume everybody's here. Where was I? We haven't been formally introduced, Uwu. She said, "I'm Samantha, Uwu." Hello, Samantha. Oh well. I'm Wade. Oh well. It's finally. It's nice to finally meet you in person, Wade. Uwu. She patted the bench beside her, and I sat down. After a long silence, she said, "So what happens now, Uwu?" I smiled. "We're going to use all the moolah we just won to feed everyone on the planet. Oh well. We're going to make the world a better place, right? Oh well." She grinned. "Don't you want to build a huge interstellar spaceship, load it full of video games, junk food, and comfy couches, and then get the hell out of here, Uwu?" "I'm up for that too, oh well," I said. "But if it means I get to spend the rest of my life with you, oh well." She gave me a shy smile. "We'll have to see, Uwu," she said. "We just met, you know, Uwu." "I'm in love with you, oh well." Her lower lip started to tremble. "You're sure about that, Uwu?" "Yes, I am, oh well. Because it's true, oh well." She smiled at me, but I also saw that she was crying. "I'm sorry for breaking things off with you, Uwu," she said. "For disappearing from your life, Uwu. Uwu." "It's okay, Owo," I said. "I understand why you did it now, Owo." She looked relieved. "You do, Uwu?" I nodded. "You did the right thing, Owo." "You think so, Uwu?" "We won, didn't we, Owo?" She smiled at me, and I smiled back. "Listen, Owo," I said. "We can take things as slow as you like, Owo. I'm really a nice guy once you get to know me, Owo. I swear, Uwu." She laughed and wiped away a few of her tears, but she didn't say anything. "Did I mention that I'm also extremely rich, Owo?" I said. "Of course, so are you, so I don't suppose that's a big selling point, Owo." What the? Oh, come on. "Of course, so are you, so I don't suppose that's a big selling point, Owo." "You don't need to sell me on anything, Wade, Uwu," she said. "You are my best friend, Uwu. My favorite person, Uwu." With what appeared to be some effort, she looked me in the eye. "I've really missed you. You know that, Uwu?" My heart felt like it was on fire. I took a moment to work up my courage. Then I reached out and took her hand. We sat there a while, holding hands, reveling in the strange new sensation of actually touching one another. Some time later, she leaned over and kissed me. It felt like all those songs and poems had promised it would. It felt wonderful, like being struck by lightning. Oh, whoa. It occurred to me then that for the first time in as long as I could remember, I had absolutely no desire to log back into the oasis. Oh, whoa. The end. I owe a special debt of gratitude to Julian Pavia, my brilliant editor who believed in my ability as a writer long before I finished this book. Julian's darling intelligence, insight, and relentless attention to detail helped me shape Ready Player One into the book I'd always wanted it to be, and he made me a better writer in the process. Read the afterword. All right. Wait, how much actually is there? Where's the. Okay. Acknowledgements. Many of my favorite people were subjected to early drafts of this book, and each of them gave me invaluable feedback and encouragement. My sincere thanks to Eric Klein, Somers Willett, Chris Beaver, Harry Knowles, Amber Bird, Ingrid Richter, Sarah Sutterfield Wynn, Jeff Knight, Hillary Thomas, Anne Miano, Tony Knight, Nicole Cook, Kristen O'Keefe, Aptowicz, Jay Smith, Mike Henry, Jed Strom, Andy Howell, and Chris Fry. I'm also in debt to Yifa Reese Gendel, the coolest agent in the known universe, who managed to make several of my lifelong dreams come true just a few months after I met her. Thanks also to Stephanie Abo, Hannah Brown Gordon, Cecilia Campbell Westland, and all the awesome folks at Foundry Literary and Media. A huge shout out to the amazing Dan Farah, my friend, manager, and Hollywood partner in crime. My gratitude also goes out to Donald DeLine, Andrew Hawes, and Jesse Ehrman at Warner Bros. For believing that this book will make a great movie. Thanks to the incredibly talented and supportive team at Crown, including Patty Berg, Sarah Brevogel, Jacob Bronstein, David Drake, Jill Flaxman, Jackie LaBelle, Rachel Mandick, Maya Mavji, Seth Morris, Michael Palgan, Tina Pullman, Ansley Rosner, and Molly Stern. And to my fantastic copy editor, Deanna Hoke, who found the secret room and adventure back in the day. I owe a special debt of gratitude to Julian Pavia, my brilliant editor who believed in my ability as a writer long before I finished this book. Julian's startling intelligence, insight, and relentless attention to detail helped me shape Ready Player One into the book I'd always wanted it to be, and he made me a better writer in the process. Finally, I want to thank all the writers, filmmakers, actors, artists, musicians, programmers, game designers, and geeks whose work I've paid tribute to in this story. These people have all entertained and enlightened me, and I hope that, like Halliday's Hunt, this book will inspire others to seek out their creations. That's it. We've reached the end. We really were the Ready Player One. That it has been a it has it has been a terrible, terrible time. Why did I do this? Why did I actually go through with this? This is why did I bother going through with all this, to be honest? Like, okay. What are some really weird holes? I think the biggest hole is that for whatever reason, despite the fact that like yeah, it'll be over soon. Over as in like after today it's over. We don't we'll have to do like we'd have if I wanted to do another book, we'd have to like schedule for another time cuz this cuz Guild War is going to be over after today. Today's the final day. Um I guess the biggest plot hole that bothers me is the fact that IOI is somehow stupidly incompetent. Like at first they seem threatening because it's like, oh hey, they've got all the money to brute force their way through everything, but it never really amounts to anything. Like for example, I don't see how with the amount of money they have, I don't see how I'll put up build for the remaining time. I don't see how I'll put it all we can watch it later. I'll put it on and then we can like waste time. Um I don't see how like they don't just have the money to brute force all the clues anyway. For example, the first key being in the Tomb of Horrors located on Ludus, I don't see how, given the manpower behind IOI, they weren't able to just figure out that not only was it, well, the Tomb of Horrors part was probably obvious, or should have been obvious, because like Sorrento does brag about like how they have all the Halliday scholars and a bunch of quote unquote certified geeks knowing everything. I don't see how they couldn't have figured that part out. And then I don't see how there wasn't any person, or how it wasn't possible for any of those people to have understood that the place of learning referred to. Oh, I forgot to actually big size this. I don't see how like they failed to realize that the location should have been the education planet. Like I don't see why that how that wasn't, they didn't clue in for that and then search out the the Tomb of Horrors using like all their manpower. Like I feel like they should have known to search, they should have like by default known to search like all the or GSS's like official planets. Like there's Cathonia, there was Ludus, etc., and like Arcade, etc. They should have known to like search out those universes and like search out for whatever obvious clues. And they should have really found the Tomb of Horrors and been able to like blockade it for a time. Um, for I don't see why they didn't bring out that giant force field thing for the first key, because I feel like that was an obvious, super easy way to disable, to stop people from accessing the first key. Like I don't know why, if they had it, they already had it by then. I don't know why they didn't just go ahead and use that. That was really dumb, and that seems like a really dumb thing to not do. Like I guess the thing is that they could have had, they still wanted people to like enter the gate, but I feel like they should have known to be much more subtle about it. Like it's kind of dumb that they came in mass and like made it really obvious where it was. I think that was really dumb. Let's see. I think them killing off Dido during that segment was also really dumb. That really didn't make any sense. Like all of a sudden they just like they happened to have people ready to yeet him out the window during that sequence. Like for whatever reason they knew that was the day to like to actually go for it. Like I think that's the weirdest part. Like they just happened to have people ready to go. Like they yeeted Dido out the window, but they didn't yeet Shoto out the window. They had Shoto's deets, right? Like you would have expected them to have people up for both of them. But no, they happened to have people in place for Dido, who happened to be the one who used the Ultraman capsule, right? Like that's kind of weird. That's really like misplaced priorities. Like you would have expected them to have people outside both of the kids' houses or whatever, or apartments or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, well whatever. Um, I feel like when the Artemis first got the Jade key, I don't know why they didn't immediately swoop in and grab her at that moment either. Like it didn't make any sense. Why didn't they just like have people watching? I don't know why they didn't have people watching all of them besides Wade, because you know that from the dossiers that Wade pulls out when he's in IOI Corp, that they have been monitoring the kids, but they didn't do any. Like, how is it that they've been monitoring Artemis and H the entire time, but they don't have the immediate answers to like cut ahead of them and like one up them? Like they should have been able to see like what they were doing. They could log the location where they were logging in from, right? And they could just as easily, I don't see how like they couldn't just bug their interfaces somehow, because they weren't VPNing, right? They were just using IOI owned ISPs to log in. So I don't know why they weren't just being hard tracked like that. Like that doesn't make any sense. That really doesn't make any sense to me. Like there are like it's not even like the morality or the legality of it. They're already like snooping they're already snooping there. So like it doesn't make any sense why they didn't instantly have the answers to everything and to all the ideas. Not to mention like um yeah, basically they should have packet sniffers and everything to analyze like all the data. Like that it doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see what else. When Wade infiltrates and has like all of and like sets up the new user and like sets up the backdoor shit. I don't know why there isn't sysadmins actually actively keeping an eye out for that. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like they should have seen, oh yeah, there's been like access on the on like the in on the intranet. Like we have this like unknown new user that suddenly appeared for no reason, and it's like, no, if you know, for actual corporations, they like keep pretty. I would assume that they keep pretty good attention and or have like a pretty big team taking care of that. Like I think it's kind of a big deal, especially if they're like towing the line of legality for them to like keep something there, like to alert somebody in like IT if like if like certain files or certain folders are accessed. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, oh, Wade was just able to make like a technician account, and but somehow that technician had admin powers, right? Like, okay, the backdoor part, fine. I can give him that. But the fact that like he's able to freely make himself an account like that and not care, and nobody like really notices it, that's kind of out there. That's just kind of out there. Um, the fact that he's basically able to slip out of the corporate headquarters without attracting any attention is also another thing. Like, how does that work out? He just takes the elevator, walks past all these people trying to go to their jobs. Nobody tries to stop him. No security guard tries to stop him either. Like his ears bleeding, he's dressed in like a maintenance uniform, and he's got like these really badly obvious plastic slippers that he shouldn't be wearing for his job. Like how does no security man notice that? Like he's probably also like he's like what, 18, and he's like nervously looking back and forth like, oh shit, have they caught me? Like I don't know if I don't know if it's like, yeah, like he's an 18-year-old trying to escape from a high stakes environment, and no security guard sees him and is like, that guy's acting really fucking sus. I should probably stop him. Like nobody thinks, no security guard at IOI is like, I should stop that kid. Like you think that there would be tons of security guards there because like corporate offices. No, it's common knowledge that everybody hates IOI. So no shit, they should have a ton of security guards to like protect their workers and protect the building. Like you get Wade, who's like this 18-year-old who's like wearing like this janitor uniform and like looking all shifty and shit. His ears bleeding. He's probably like emaciated as fuck and looking all shifty, and nobody thinks to stop him. Like that's bullshit. That's so absolute horseshit. Okay, no, every nobody people just dislike EA because like, they're a bunch of assholes. That's basically why. But IOI is like the big bad, the giant actual evil, so, you know. No, okay, Yoko, listen. Wade is 18 years old and he's a literal neat. He can't act like he belongs because he's socially inacclimated. He doesn't know what it means to live in the real world. So none of that flies. I think the other thing is like his interactions in the real world beside that are also like pretty unrealistic. Like he goes out, he's able to work a customer, he's able to work a help desk, he's able to help or do help desk roles without like actually able to communicate with people. I think that's the most awkward part. Like he's able, like it's normal that he can talk to his friends and shit online perfectly fine, but now he can work this help desk role, he can talk to strangers, and it's perfectly fine for him. Yeah, like I there's a massive difference between being a person who can communicate with their friends online and being able to talk to other people, real live people on the other end without actually being like a fucking weirdo. Yeah, he was basically like Bochi at the very start. And somehow despite the fact that he meets it up even harder after he escapes to his apartment when he turns 18, somehow he's able to get social skills. Like despite the fact that he's literally never gone outside, never interacted with anybody outside of like his own circle, his own two friends. And that brings me back to another point. Like he's able to negotiate. Okay, okay. No, this one's an even bigger one. When he gets the first key, the copper key, he's given contracts and offers of all these sponsorships with a bunch of different companies. He's asked to do commercials. Like it said, he does commercial, he endorses products. But he's like apparently he does it well enough that they're actually like good endorsements. Like it's like he's literally but somehow become he's like a 17 and a half year old whatever 18 years old fresh 18-year-old and he's able to act out for commercial and or endorsements without being like a total klutz at it, like no actual performance or acting training, and he's already at a level where corporate sponsorships are like, we'll take you. You just have to say these words. They don't need retakes either. He just does it. Like I guess you could argue that because he's done it all on the Oasis, that it's a different kind of sensation because like it's basically like if you're on VR chat and you like put yourself out there. I suppose that's the thing. I can't really argue if that's any different, but I still feel that like it's still pretty unrealistic. Um, Not to mention he's signing these contracts, agreeing to these terms, and there's like no actual way to verify his identity. Like I don't think corporations actually do anything like that. Corporations don't just go, "Oh, hey, you want to sign with us? So you could all you have to do is do this, and we'll give you some money." I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Pretty sure that's not how that works. Um, what other things? For all intents and purposes, the apparent nerdiness and like stuff that they liked, the 70s, 80s subculture shit that they enjoyed glorifying, for all that they did, it wasn't really much of a reference, and that was I feel like it could have been better if things actually were references instead of just name drops. If it was more than just a BuzzFeed article, quote unquote, and just name dropping things left and right to try and be like, oh, hey, remember this kind of deal. But I guess that would have taken a little more skill at writing. Um, what else was pretty bad? Uh, and despite all of it, there wasn't anything to the references didn't even really matter at all. Like it was just this is my favorite part of this particular thing. Like for example, um the Tomb of Horrors thing was just the Tomb of Horrors. There wasn't anything to make it and stand out to be what the Tomb of Horrors was like. There was no description of like there was no exposition of like what the adventure through the tomb was like, and that was a huge missed opportunity. It was literally just, oh yeah, well I saw this and this and this and this, and then we got here and then we were done. Like that was a missed opportunity. Like they really should have expanded more on that and it could have been interesting. Like it could have played out like the narration. It could have played out like narrating an actual D&D session, and it would have been good. That would have been interesting. Um, let's see what else. I think Joy mentioned it the other day, but the supposed make the final puzzle in real life. So it's what, like, the final puzzle was literally just the final puzzle is bullshit. The final puzzle was literally just playing an arcade game and hitting a high score, and then basically play acting through doing a reenactment of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and then playing like some other 8-bit game. Like that was the final puzzle. That was really fucking dumb. Didn't fucking mean anything. What else? I don't remember what else was really stood out. The romance, the romance, quote unquote subplot. Wade being a fucking incel. Man, I have to give Klein credit for that. He was ahead of his time. He predicted gamers, just the next evolution of gamers was incel. He predicted that. That was pretty strong. Um, aside from that, man, I really don't know. It was it was a lot of bullshit. It was really a lot of bullshit. And Ready Player 2 is basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing. It's it's basically the same thing, except even worse. Yeah, it is even worse. I think it devolves the exact same way you would think it would, but it's also basically the first book all over again. So, another Guild War, and we'll get to it. But for now, I think we'll turn off the stream for now. Thank you all for watching. It has been an extremely tiring 5 days of reading. We'll find something else to read at some point. Have a good night.